Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Maller Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. lawmg.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. Increasing funding for K-12 education is a budget priority this session, but Republicans may balk at the governor's pitch for free textbooks.
Whether or not we can get to that with the textbooks is something we'll talk about in our caucus, and I'm sure the House will as well.
This year's general session at the Statehouse began Monday. Little Free Libraries is a worldwide movement, and the small boxes filled with free books have taken hold in Bloomington.
Getting books in kids' hands really is important, and I want to do that wherever I can.
There are several little libraries scattered around the city and county. And we talk with an expert about the rash of problems incurred by the airline industry over the past month. We'll have these stories plus the latest news from across the state right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. The Indiana General Assembly session began this week, and Governor Eric Holcomb used his State of the State address to urge lawmakers to support his ambitious, expensive agenda. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Brandon Smith reports on Holcomb's second-to-last address to the Indiana General Assembly.
Holcomb proposes spending $5.5 billion new dollars in the budget on programs and initiatives that span education, public health, and economic development. In trying to sell that to lawmakers, he repeatedly emphasized the impact it could have and brought a personal touch. For instance, highlighting a parent who paid about $630 in textbook fees this year.
Let's cover the full cost of curriculum fees paid for by parents so that folks like Mandy don't have to pay this dreadful bill ever again starting the next school year.
There was a new announcement. The state will award grants to help build the longest trail in Indiana, more than 60 miles of an old rail line in southern Indiana.
Another great example of the state helping meet the demand to explore and discover in Indiana, right in our backyards.
Holcomb is asking lawmakers for another $75 million this year for trails and land conservation. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
Legislative leaders of both parties were largely supportive of many of Holcomb's priorities. One of the biggest sticking points with fellow Republicans seems to be his plan to provide free textbooks to all K-12 public and charter students.
Whether or not we can get to that with the textbooks is something we'll talk about in our caucus, and I'm sure the House will as well.
Republicans seemed more supportive of an unprecedented infusion of funding for Indiana's public health system, but House Speaker Todd Houston cautioned that lawmakers will look not just at dollars, but outcomes. Senate Democratic leader Greg Taylor was struck by what he didn't hear in the governor's speech.
We still have people who can't afford housing and who can't afford child care costs. It's time to take a look at households and not just businesses.
Now, in a statement, House Democratic leader Phil Giaquinta rejected what he called Holcomb's rosy assessment of the state and said Democrats stand ready to improve Indiana. Advocates for cannabis legalization are also making a renewed push at the State House in 2023, and for some, the goal was progress of any kind, even if incremental.
We have a lot of momentum, not only because of new lawmakers coming in, but because voters are getting more and more vocal on what they're expecting from the legislators.
Swanson is a State House veteran, having lobbied there for years. He's keeping his expectations realistic. He wants at least a committee hearing on cannabis reform. Legislation is being filed in both chambers by lawmakers of both parties that deal with aspects of cannabis reform.
I'm not saying we have all the answers today, but we do need to start having those discussions in a public setting so we can identify where the rubs are, the frictions are, and take care of them in the bill.
Indiana is bordered by cannabis-friendly states. Medical and recreational marijuana is legal in Illinois and Michigan, while medical marijuana is legal in Ohio. You can't buy cannabis in Kentucky, but medical users are allowed to possess it. Bloomington City Council members voted to override Mayor John Hamilton's veto of a resolution supporting the creation of a capital improvement board to run the Monroe Convention Center expansion project. The vote was 8-1, same as last month's vote when the council voted to join the county's plan to create a CIB for the project. Councilmember Kate Rosenberger voted no both times. Hamilton continues to be in favor of a nonprofit 501c3 entity to run the project, which has been in the works for 7 years. We're joined now by Lucas Gonzalez, who has been covering the story for more. Welcome to the show. So what's next for the project?
The ball is basically in the county's court now. Back last year, they passed a county ordinance that, with the introduction of 2023, it's become void, right? So now that the city council has taken this vote, it's up to the county commissioners and the county council to get this done.
So there's more than one council member open to that 501c3.
Yeah, so for example, Councilman Stephen Volan expressed that he was agnostic to the idea. He said that he supported the idea of a 501c3 for potentially other city projects. Nevertheless, he was one of the council members who voted in support of the creation of a CIB. This is something that's been going on for several years now. The sense that I got in covering the meeting is that pretty much everyone just wants to get this done.
At some point, if there's going to be a convention center, we have to find some way to manage it. The 501c3 could theoretically be involved in the CIB. I'm kind of agnostic at this point.
So how will the project be funded?
The project will be funded by the food and beverage tax. This is something that started collecting funds in 2018. It was introduced in 2017. To date, it's collected more than $14 million in taxpayer money. And it is something that there's a bit of a time limit on, considering there is a bill in the General Assembly that could pose a threat to it. This is Senate Bill 37, and the sense is basically they need to act as soon as they possibly can to prevent this from, missing their opportunity here. So
I will be very loud and very proud in my urging the county council to rescind the food and beverage tax as soon as possible if a 501c3 corporation is formed in order to build and manage a new convention center.
Thank you so much for your coverage. We look forward to more.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, the key economic tension to watch out for in 2023 will likely be the balance between employment levels and the cost of living. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Adam Yaha-Reyes reports Indiana's latest unemployment rate is still historically low, despite some increases in the last few months.
We don't have all the data from 2022 yet. Purdue Community Research Institute Director Rachel Blakeman says the data we do have suggests Indiana entered 2023 with a red-hot job market.
A year ago or so, we were in a white-hot job market. So has it softened a little bit? Yes.
But Blakeman says most employment data is better at showing where we've been than where we're going, and there are reasons to believe the tide may turn. The Federal Reserve is trying to lower inflation by raising loan interest rates, forcing businesses to reduce production. That means people could lose jobs, but the cost of milk will go back down. Economist Tinshin Lin wonders if that's the right approach.
Inflation, yes. Prices are very high, but I can squeeze. And I can take an online class. So I don't need to drive to campus and save the gasoline cost.
There's hope that if a downturn does hit as predicted, it may not be too bad for workers since we're coming off such a strong labor market. But it's far too early to know for sure. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Adam Yaha-Reyes.
The concept of little free libraries is a worldwide movement that works to make free books available for readers of all ages. One New City resident wondered why there couldn't be a little free library in every park. Our Sarah Vaughn looked into what it takes to create a free library and who's doing it.
If you haven't heard of them, Little Free Libraries are book-sharing boxes in public places, providing access to books 24/7. The website of the St. Paul, Minnesota nonprofit Little Free Library provides step-by-step instructions for building a library, information for stewarding one, and a map to find Little Free Libraries worldwide. Karen Kimbrell is a recent transplant to Bloomington from Charlotte, North Carolina, where she worked as a library assistant. One day she was walking in Highland Village Park.
And I thought that's where you put little free libraries, is right where the kids are, because we know so many kids that don't have access to books at home, and there's a lot, that it can really be very telling for their future schooling and employment, really.
In fact, she thinks every local park would benefit from having free access to books for all ages. Some Bloomington city parks do have an official Little Free Library. For example, there's one in Bryan Park with a Little Free Pantry attached. But the Parks Department simply doesn't have the funds to place libraries in every city park, according to its Community Relations Manager, Julie Ramey. Instead, it has worked with nonprofits and Boy Scouts to install their pre-constructed libraries. The first step is to submit a proposal to the Parks and Recs Operations Department. Proposals need to include information about who will steward the library and a 5-year maintenance plan. The organization Friends of the Monroe County Public Library spearheaded the placement of many Little Free Libraries in the city and the county, including at Will Detmer Park. That Little Free Library is stewarded by the MCPL Children's Department. But you don't have to go through the Little Free Library nonprofit to establish one. Retired teacher Abby Seifers says she's always wanted kids to have books in their hands. While she was teaching, she noticed books available at school weren't necessarily available for kids to take home. So she created her own stash with multiple copies in case some didn't come back to her. She continued the effort by building her own Little Free Library in a corner of her yard and dedicated it to children's books.
To me, getting books in kids' hands, wonderful picture books, great chapter books for them, those who are ready for that, really is important, and I want to do that wherever I can to help.
She stocks it with books she knows from experience kids will like, as well as some of her personal favorites.
And then this is a fiction, but more of a beginner, end of first grade, second grade kind of book. But it's a chapter book, and those kids, they're really, excited to read chapter books.
Seifers says her neighbors contribute books too.
And sometimes I'll see them, they'll say, "Oh, I see the box is getting kind of low. I'm going to go through our stash." I'm like, yay. Because you want to get people involved,
Over the holidays, Seifers and her husband roamed the city, donating books to local Little Free Libraries that needed plumping up. Karen Kimbrell has an inner book fairy as well.
I used to do that in Charlotte, buy them at the book sale and then sprinkle them around the neighborhood. I don't know, I get a real kick out of doing that.
She says she hopes to renew that habit here in Bloomington. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Sarah Vaughn.
A map of Little Free Libraries on the national website shows more than 24 little libraries in Bloomington. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. The airline industry has been in the news for all the wrong reasons lately: high fares, delays, and cancellations. And a new program at the University of Evansville teaches special needs children and young people about music. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
We care about things that affect the lives of every American.
We are there at the front line
to get to the heart of what really matters in every issue.
This country has not seen this in 80 years.
This extraordinary moment in American history.
You're making such a huge impact.
Trust is at the heart of what we do.
Life is full of choices, and right now your favorite member benefit, Passport, is offering more choices for you to stream.
Welcome to the club.
It's a beautiful thing. With cooking.
Gotta let it cook, but I keep wanting to smell it.
Travel.
And here we are.
Documentaries.
I realized I could change the world.
And so much more. The choice is yours with Passport on the PBS Video app.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Well, this week, the Federal Aviation Authority grounded all airplanes for the first time since 9/11 due to a computer outage. It led to more than 2,000 cancellations and more than 4,000 delays Wednesday morning. Flights resumed after a couple of hours, but it came on the heels of a meltdown over the holidays, when Southwest Airlines canceled almost 17,000 flights. Now, those issues and rising ticket costs have people wondering what's going on with the airline industry. We're joined now by Volodymyr Balatkych, an associate professor in aviation management at Purdue University. Welcome to the show, Professor.
Thanks for having me.
So Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg faced a lot of criticism over Wednesday's grounding. But is there really anything the federal government can do to address the industry's issues?
No, I mean, now that we know more information about what happened, I mean, at first I thought, okay, what was wrong with the backup system? Was there a backup system for NOTAM? But now we know that actually there was a backup system. It was present, but it malfunctioned as well. And so it looks to me that it has been either sort of an unfortunate human error or otherwise sort of an unfortunate technological incident. And really, I cannot think of anything else that could have been done. Well, maybe a couple of trainings will be sort of will be done at the FAA for people working with that system, but really it was a very unfortunate incident. That's how it kind of is shaping up to be.
What sort of rights do passengers have when flights are canceled? Who can they turn to?
Well, in this country, unfortunately, well, they are at the airline's mercy, more or less, right? So there are no laws such as, for instance, in the European Union. So in the EU, when a flight is canceled, then the airlines are actually obligated to compensate the passengers to some extent. Actually, that happened to me once. And I got 250 euros from KLM for compensation for a canceled flight. And in addition to that, I sent them my hotel bill, the bill for dinner and breakfast, and everything was reimbursed. But obviously they did it because they were required to do it by the EU regulations. There is nothing comparable here in this country. So essentially you are at the mercy of an airline, or if you have purchased a travel insurance, then call your insurance company and see if they can help you here. And as a matter of fact, when returning from a holiday last week, our flight was also canceled and the airline rerouted us. So we spent 2 extra days on the road. And so since we did not actually have travel insurance on that occasion, so we just had to pay for 2 extra nights hotel and whatever we spent on meals, right?
So there's a report in November said the cost of an airline ticket up 25%. Is that inflation? Do you expect that to come down anytime soon?
Well, it's inflation and also the fact that demand is recovering faster than supply. So if you look at the data, you will see that the passenger numbers, or at least the demand is at more or less 80 or so, more or less like 90% or so percent of the pre-pandemic level. Capacity is currently at around 80% or so of the pre-pandemic level. So there is a bit of a mismatch between supply and demand, and simply there are just kind of too many people who want to fly relative to the number of seats that are available, and obviously prices are higher than they were. And if we, well, and on top of this, of course, you have inflation. On top of this, you have labor shortages, which do not allow the airlines to return all the capacity back to the market. And I mean, I would say that maybe February, March, that's when we start seeing the situation stabilizing.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
TSA agents intercepted at least 6,300 guns nationwide in 2022. Of those, 68 were at the Indianapolis International Airport. The number of TSA firearm interceptions has steadily increased since 2010, except for in 2020 when there was a sharp decline in travel due to COVID-19. A TSA spokesperson says the steady increase over the past decade could be a result of growing gun ownership.
It's just so incredibly dangerous. It's such a time-consuming and expensive mistake. We really think the onus is on the passenger to just do better and not bring this to the checkpoint.
According to the TSA, anyone who brings a loaded firearm to a security checkpoint may be subject to a federal civil penalty. The University of Evansville has wrapped up its inaugural season of United Sound. It's a program that teaches special needs children and young people music. helping both students and teachers grow. Tim Jagalo of WNIN in Evansville has this report.
Ready, 1, 2, ready, go.
These young people are working with University of Evansville student mentors to get ready for an upcoming holiday concert. This new program at UE is called United Sound, and student Annie Kim is the president of this college chapter.
The purpose of United Sound is to help new musicians who are students with disabilities get an opportunity to learn music and to perform in concert. It's really important to us to be able to spread musical education because music is a genuine joy that everyone deserves to experience, so we're really excited to be able to bring this to the Evansville community.
United Sound is a national program with elementary, middle school, and high school chapters as well. This group has only met a few times, but in less than a week, they'll be performing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on stage alongside the University Symphony Orchestra. United Sound developed a simple yet elegant way to teach the musical notes.
Music is a very abstract concept, and rhythm is an even more abstract concept, and we like to bring things closer to things that our new musicians are familiar with. So instead of saying quarter note or half note, we'll say something like cake or soup, which is easier to understand.
UE faculty advisors are Chun Ming Chen, who conducts the UE Symphony Orchestra, and music therapy professor Melissa Hefner. New musician Cade Heller is 22. He moved to the city a couple of years ago with his parents, including his dad, Phil.
We moved here just a couple of years ago and really found that there weren't a lot of programs in the Evansville area just for people who were kind of finished with high school and kind of entering adulthood. So we were real excited about this program that UV offered. Cade loves music, and so it's been fun for him to have an outlet for that. We always joke that he doesn't have much pitch, but he has good rhythm. So this percussion class was perfect for him.
You know, coordination, all of that stuff is involved in the process. So you're activating the brain, the muscles, physical things are going on, cognitive things are going on, social things are going on, and it's also fun. So there's the emotional side of things too.
As a music therapist, you can teach some musical aspects, but a lot of times in music therapy, you're utilizing the music to get a therapeutic purpose across. So this was different because we were teaching music.
So when you get to your chair, have one mentor on the left and one mentor on the right. And when you come on stage, one mentor will bring the instrument.
Oh, knock it off.
Tess and Hope Fuller of Newburgh are here with their parents, Andy and Nina.
Well, this is the first time that they have been on stage with an orchestra, so that's been pretty special for them. I think people are getting back into extracurricular activities and finding more opportunities to be engaged in the community. And I think that's really important, not just for the special needs population, but for the neurotypical population, so that we can learn to develop friendships through programs such as United Sound.
While this semester the music and instruments are kept pretty simple, United Sound can actually meet new musicians where they are. Sometimes they just need a little help before they can join an ensemble, and sometimes they just play one note the entire time.
Hello, hello. Hey there, what's up?
Yes. Okay, yeah, I'll ask again. You're about to go on. How do you feel?
Confident. And she's a crazy sister.
Starting United Sound was a very long process with a lot of obstacles that we had to overcome, but it was really fulfilling to see the mentors and musicians up there finally getting to share the music that they've been working so hard to prepare with our audience, so it was really exciting and really fulfilling.
Look for United Sound again for the spring semester, with more percussion and the addition of violins.
And the donor for IU Sample Gates, Edson Sample, died last month. He worked for the university in the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid for nearly 30 years, retiring in 1990. IU Foundation President Emeritus Kurt Simic says that Sample wanted to help make the university a welcoming place, and it was focused on equality in education.
All that goes to say that he was engaged with students. He was interested in their welfare. He was interested in them finding a home here at Indiana University that would be exciting to them and hospitable to them and special to them.
Today, the gates are one of the university's most recognizable landmarks, a favorite spot to take pictures. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Maller Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. Rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.